We're going to have a conversation about embedding the digitalization and how it actually works in real life. But also I want to open up some questions from the floor. So feel free to think of some questions you've probably always wanted to ask and never had a chance to ask. These are the three people you want to ask too, right? So I'll come to you guys in a minute. But let me just ask, in terms of embedding digitalization, what are the big areas and challenges that you're seeing in terms of making sure it's not just a theoretical thing, but actually you can embed it in the longer run? What kind of things are you seeing in terms of challenges and developments? I'll come to you first.
Okay, so I mean, we heard a lot of buzzwords already today, and one of it for me is trust again. So for me, embedding digitalization means embedded in our way of thinking and working. And that means to change the way we work, to change the way we interact with technology, to change also the way we interact with each other. And for doing so, we need to build trust. We need to build trust, and we heard about it. The user, that they trust into the solutions, especially now with Gen AI? Are we trusting in the recommendations for decisions and so on and so forth? So that's so adoption will take place afterwards. But we also have to make sure to embed digitalization in the overall strategic overall, and also create trust with our top management that this really will create value add and business value, especially in times like now, where the automotive industry is still ongoing through a transformation. There are a lot of external shocks and so on and so forth. So we don't do digitalization for fun. And when it comes then for challenges, I think that's also something we have heard a lot in this morning. So also at Autoliv, a lot of Excel-based legacies we have planning and Power BIs and high diversity of self-developed tools or other tools too. So Tom can missing data. That can really lead to long delays. What I'm just seeing in my project, that's delays not focused coming out because of people not willing to work, but just the data missing or not in the right shape, and so on and so forth. And then being also able to make clear, okay, these are our OKRs. This is how it's linked, and how we can measure it and bring this together. So these are challenges we face at the moment. Yeah. But to sum it up, for me, embedding digitalization is really how can we make it sure that it changes, or we work in another way, the way of working, so that it actually is used and is not in the graveyard of pilots, and also not in the even a graveyard of successful rollouts, where in the end people still just download the Excel out of the system, manipulate it, and upload it again.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're not doing digitalization for fun, right?
Yes.
That's really important. Gebriel, just coming to you first, what kind of are you seeing in terms of embedding digitalization within the industry and sector?
Yeah, so in terms of sort of challenges and inhibitors, it's largely two things that we see. I'm going to start off by the system landscape. You mentioned it, Gisela. The system landscape is often very, very sort of fragmented. There's maybe a planning system from provider 1 and a transport system from provider 2, and WMS is maybe within the ERP, and then we maybe need some visibility tooling, and then we have maybe something fancy with some data scientists who try to build something on their own, and to that actually come coherently together is very challenging. So that would be one inhibitor I would see, and the other one I see is value orientation. Right? We see a lot of. Let me give you a little bit of fun here, right? So this is what a day in the life of a business development rep could look like for Blue Yonder. It's like, hello, this is Blue Yonder. Oh, you're looking for a planning system. That's fantastic. What is it that you would like to achieve by deploying a planning system? Okay, so you would like to get rid of your spreadsheets. Okay. But what does the business want to get out of it? Okay, so you want to automate some manual process. Okay. What metrics would you like to be better after the deployment of a system? Oh, you don't know. Okay. That is unfortunately very, very often the reality. So if you don't put that in front of any of those exercises and the clear target, this is where we are now, this is where we want to be afterwards, it's going to go anywhere, but not necessarily where you want it to be.
Yeah, it's almost creating that process correctly and the roadmap, I suppose, to success. Julian, where are you seeing some of the challenges in the process?
I would connect the two items. First, saying, or what we, not always find in companies is the big picture, the vision, the strategy. Where do they want to be in their supply chain? How do they want to digitize, and what values do I eventually want to reap? And this is where we see the very first and utmost important point is having an idea of where you want to be as an organization, understanding what your clients need, understanding what your stakeholders require in order to serve their demand, in order to grow the competitive advantage that is helping you in the market space. And this is what we think you should first have in order to avoid all these traps, and don't get distracted. Always this FOMO, fear of missing out on Gen I. I mean, it was really killing me when I first seen what's possible. When I think about, how do we engineer in the future? How do we optimize in the future? When the machine is doing all of it, and how can I do it tomorrow? I want to get on top of that. And this FOMO, I think you can manage much better if you have a clear vision of where you want to be, and if you have a roadmap, because you can adjust your roadmap maybe with some elements, but you're still following a longer path. Yeah. And this, I believe, is very important to move into a successful transformation.
Yeah, it's almost slowing the process down a bit, just so that we all get to the right pace, because otherwise you'll get so flustered about trying to get there and missing opportunities elsewhere, right? Gisela, if I can come to you with regard to the sort of system architecture and the framework that Autoliv are looking for in terms of the supply chain and how you see it across the supply chain. What do you think? And I'll come to you guys in a minute.
So also building on what has been already said before, I mean, we have a legacy of all these different systems, and as many automotive suppliers, also Autoliv has been growing by acquisitions locally, being also always close to the OEM, so we have like around 70 plants and 27 countries and 14 tech centers, so there's a lot of legacy around, and especially in logistics and supply chain, also a lot of driven in the plant. So what we are doing, and now coming back to what was Julian was saying, and I think it was also said by Volvo, is at the beginning of the year, what has been done by our board was looking at all the different IT stuff we were doing, this pilot graveyards, and seeing there are a lot of many great ideas, but we have scarce resources, and they may not also go in the same direction. So the first step we did, or not we, but really the board did, was trying to get, okay, what are the key initiatives, targets we want to achieve that go in line with our old strategy to become a market transformer and not only a market leader. So what do we need here to stay competitive? And then they identified like 8 areas and prioritized 4 of them, and I was lucky with supply chain to being one of them. Because here we then we focus on these, but really end to end, bring the right people together, and so on and so forth. So coming back to how do we set this up and how do we do it? We have my steering committee, so to say, consists of the Autoliv executive management team. Every 3 months, these 4 key cross-functional initiatives have to report. They have to report on OKRs. So there was a clear setup, not only linking it on PowerPoints to our strategy, but like, okay, how does each initiative reduce, for example, premium freights, reduce inventories, increase efficiencies in the plant overhead, and so on and so forth. And for the salespeople who have another project, they have the OKRs, and we are reporting on them regularly, right? So this is, we have really this like top management attention and guidance towards the vision, but also really the focus on this value, on the benefits to get there.
Also working cross-functionally and not just with silos, because that's another issue we talked about yesterday in today's silos.
Exactly, and that's also, I think it was also mentioned by Birgit from Bosch, from Infineon, to have this kind of cross-functional steer course and governance. As I said, we have this, and then also having this cross-functional teams working on these topics together. but also in an agile way. So we introduced working Scrum not only in software development, the IT team, but really with the business team. So I also personally have a Scrum Master, which was very helpful because in our organization it was not yet widely used outside of IT. And really to get build these Scrum teams where they are very diverse. So we have in one of the team, I think 60 to 70% female. We have more than 10 nations in these teams. They're really globally working and working this agile way, very customer focused, working with user stories, epics, blah, blah, blah. So this was also important for us. And this is all supported by our central IT, so to say, by what we call an accelerator organization. And they have 4 pillars. One is all this around Scrum, providing Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, and so on, and trainings for the people to use this. Then we have, coming back now to OKRs, a control tower. So finance, like looking at us, but also defining together with us what would be the benefits, how can we measure it, what's the baseline, and so on. And overcoming silos. We have another section which is like about IT structure, architecture, and business architecture. So making sure that we think end-to-end and not, build up silos again with our different initiatives. Yeah. And how does it all fit together? And then the last and very important one is the data foundation. Mm-hmm. So because what I experience now in my transformation is why do I have delays? Because data is lacking, or it's not in the right semantics, or it's not in the right places, and there's like every region or every plant has done it differently. So they are there to really make sure that we just don't push stuff in our data lake, but do it in a ordered way and in a governance way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's important that we talked about some of these things earlier on as well, about the data and the silos. So just coming to Gebriel, in terms of some of the things that you're seeing in terms of how you remove some of that stuff, do you have examples of that in your role?
Yeah. So as we talked about silos, right? So basically, what happened, I think, over the last sort of 20 odd years in enterprise software, not just in supply chain, is you have this situation that the software follows the organizational silos that exist in the customer's enterprises, right? And they mimic that to some extent. So you have your planning departments, therefore you have a planning system, right? You have your transportation and logistics people, your system for them, right? The same for the warehouse, the same for order management, and et cetera. So what happens is you build next to the existing organizational silos, you've built data silos as well. Right, so and now we've seen the emergence of SaaS and cloud, and that has already brought some improvement here. And we mentioned data lake as an approach to try and centralize data and make sure it's readily available across the silos. So imagine you could have even an infrastructure that takes this one step beyond into not just integration amongst those functional domains, but actually into proper interoperability. So the emergence of the data cloud that we see now really has that kind of promise. So imagine you could, instead of integrating sort of point to point your planning system with your transportation system, what if you could just point the application to the data and not having to replicate data anymore? And through that, you could enable a level of interoperability we haven't seen before. And if you were to now think about an additional component in here, right? We live in an interesting age, right? Technology is emerging. You basically wake up the next morning, something new is in the paper, right? So if you think about generative AI, that can play actually a role here, also on the same notion of interoperability by acting on behalf of the users and being able to effectively create and execute workflows across those functional domains that haven't even existed before, and basically be an agent on behalf of the user. So what we foresee is really a change here in the way people will interact with the systems. Now, we spoke about that beforehand. Is that's going to take a while, right?
It's not immediate, is it?
It's not. Yeah, exactly. But it's maybe it's actually closer than we think, right? This was another aspect we discussed beforehand, right? Is this, we need a certain sense of urgency also to drive digitalization, right? We can't say, oh, maybe we implement the system this year, maybe next year, because there's always a cost of doing nothing. And so I think from an absorbing digital capabilities and technologies, I would really urge everyone to start think about this more urgently, right? Germany ranks 53rd globally in digitalization, right? So we need to get going, right?
Yeah. Julian.
And maybe that's due to the people. So something I would like to touch on is what Gisela said. It's bringing the people on board. And in our experience, the most successful digital transformation are those where people are actually living the change or going along. And I think that's a very, very important aspect you must not forget, and you have to put on your priority list very, very close to the top, is how to win the hearts of the people doing the transformation. To share with them how they will benefit, and think about how you can make the change or the digitization more human-centric, so that it's actually easy for the human to work with the system, that it's much more imitating the way he is working, that it's imitating interaction with him. That's why I think everyone is so amazed with Gen AI, because it's just, how you interact as a human. I think that is what a lot of changes and transformations actually fail in, winning the people. They just think about, okay, I want to transform these spreadsheets into an integrated business planning or supply chain planning system, but they're not thinking so much about how do I get the users aboard. And trust me, the users will make the transformation fail if they want to. You cannot win against the users just by pushing it onto them. Yeah. Not saying that it doesn't need a firm push. I'm not saying that. So I'm also convinced that a transformation, whatever you're transforming, whether it's your transportation management, your supply chain planning, you need to have a firm push, and you need to have a certain speed in doing that. If you just linger too long and let people float, they will drift off. But you need to do both. You need to consider the people, and you need to take them aboard, but you also need to push them a little bit that they're moving. So must not be considered as optional, but you need to understand how you win them, show them the benefit. I think that is often missing.
I just want to add on what you said about the people side. So the first thing that when I realized, okay, now you're leading this for supply chain, is like bringing in a trusted change and communication expert first. So that was there first before I selected any software or a development partner or even the Scrum Master, saying, okay, I need this person, that we build together the story, that we make sure that also the team is, as I said, we are a very diverse team, culturally diverse, we are cross-functionally, and that's also, we talk about overcoming silos, and this is also a challenge, right? Bring these people together then and have somebody here who's maybe an outsider, gets a lot of observation and a lot of feedback and coaching. So the person who's leading operationally this transformation, he has a coach, right? Because it's something else if you just do a lot of this kind of technology focus back to, okay, I have to get in people with very different mindsets into it. And I have to convince people, even if I am convinced this is the greatest solution on earth, it doesn't matter. At the end, in my case, the planner in the plant has to push the button and use this damn system to put a plan here. So I have to get into his or her shoes.
You need their buy-in.
Yeah, you need the buy-in. That's what I really can recommend everybody. What I've seen so many times, and I've been in some companies and also worked as a consulting, is this blah, blah about change management, nice PowerPoints, but not investing into it, not investing into the people, not taking the time, and you have to communicate, and repeat yourself many, many times before they finally say, okay, maybe think about it.
And actually,
one aspect on, let's say, another dimension on the notion of a diverse workforce that you have to bring along onto this journey is also the generational aspect. Sometimes a bit of an elephant in the room because it's not particularly popular to talk about it, or sometimes you're supposed not to talk about it, but the reality is this, right? If you have a planner who's been doing this for 25 years and you basically tell him, look, this system is going to do it better than you, you may have a problem, right? On the other hand, if you have a digital native who've just come from university, who's used to that their phone tells them where to go, right? That kind of person will much more readily accept that, oh look, here's a system that's done it for me, and they will interact in a very different way with this type of technology. So there can't be a one-size-fits-all approach from that angle as well.
Yeah. We had a very nice finding. Thinking about this, people don't want to do all this transactional work. They want to do more value work, all this kind of stuff. And we found that to be only partially true. Yeah. So a lot of people feel really, really well in their little comfort zone also of managing the transaction, managing the next email, having the success of the next little win, being extremely operational. So yes, in theory, they would like to do more valued stuff. They would like to do, more strategic work. That sounds just great. But in reality, a lot of these associates just feel very, very comfortable in their current role, in their current system, how they do the transactions, even if it's an AS400 with black and green letters. So you have to offer them something, and you have to think about where you start. And one thing we found to be extremely important is training, and we had that before in different wording, training data literacy. Really trying to train, what is possible, how can you do it, how is it helping you to do your current job with the same success, just a little bit better, and really taking people on this journey that they really embrace the change. And, but just telling them, okay, tomorrow you will do much more strategic work, you lose them, actually.
It is interesting when we talk about digitalization or embedding digitalization, don't forget the human. Right, you need to bring them along with you. I just want to throw it open if there's any questions at the moment from the audience. We've got one here. And we'll start here.
A moment ago, you were all talking about the differences between the specialists on the digitalization side, the softwares, the geeks. They really know how to put a product together, and then completely on the other side of the scale, you have the end users who have that barrier. We all know that in the middle are all the business analysts and the business translators, which we all rely on to really translate what the end user is saying into a language that the programmer can handle. What are your strategies to manage that group of people? Do you have them as permanent team members? How do you upskill them? What's the story?
So, for example, we were talking about overcoming silos. So for me and Autoliv, it's very normal. We don't differentiate between, so to say, IT and business. So in my weekly team calls, there's also the SCM digital, my SCM IT, so to say, director is part of it. We see us as one team. We go normally to conferences together. He couldn't join us today, and what's the story behind it? But he's one of these kind of translators because he's a former logistics director out of one region. So he's not, and he was interested in IT, and he's not the only one. So we have a lot of these like former business people in Autoliv who then transfer into a leadership role within IT to drive then to being the translator between us, so to say, and then the ones who are doing the data science or the programming. And when it comes to our Scrum teams, it's the same. So we have in the teams the data foundation people, the data scientists, but also the ones who have to do the programming, then this business analysts and the business side. And on the business side, key users. So that's why I have this like global Scrum teams, because I have from every region people who are working when it comes to inventory on inventories daily. That's then, again, how do you make this happen? That means top management and middle management have to align that, okay, I free up people now. And this, to be honest, is very, very hard, and we are not having 100, like normally in Scrum you should have people with 100% dedication. I don't have that, to be honest. I mean, you start this nicely and the board says, do it like this, but in the end, we always come back to the same great people, the great talents we use, and there's a competition about it, and you have to make some compromises, right? But it's a good start, because in the end, I have done my key users more or less already in from the beginning. And I ask them what's make it easier for you and what kind of reports and so on and so forth you need. But I agree with you, it's really key to have this kind of rotation and really to don't have this silo between IT and business, because that is also key, I think, of embedding digitalization, that you are one team.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm just glad you said that at the in the end, right? Because obviously reality in projects is projects are limited in resource, be it monetary or be it with people. So you have to make do with what you have. If you're in the lucky position that you can afford to basically identify very sort of distinguished roles that people can play, great, fantastic. But to your question, right, I would always interpret this as a spectrum, right? The sort of the two extremes that we described earlier, and you could probably find anyone in between those 2 points, and therefore I think your point of trying to find those that are strong communicators, maybe by their very nature, then make sure that they get a role in the project that amplifies what it is that you're trying to achieve. That could be something that you can do, and it would not increase your your demand for budget. It would not increase the people count, but you could just try and be selective about which role does someone play in a project. And if that doesn't properly align with the job description they have in your HR system, fine, right? Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
There was one very successful transformation we supported, I think a year ago. So the company, a motorcycle manufacturer, did not want to go right away to the tech vendors, but said, okay, we want to, let's say, simulate process first. We want to understand first what is the business value we are opting for. So they had the target picture. And then they were saying, before we go out to the market, we want to understand what the organization really needs. And what they did is they were designing, not the final design of the process, but they were designing several process elements and simulated them with some tools, with small tools, to see, do our ideas really work? And with that, they did not only validate what they were aiming for, but they also brought on a lot of people across the organization. So not just one team who's doing the transformation, but across the different countries, across the different plants, they had, let's say, pockets of people who were thinking about it already, talking about it already. And then after half a year, they finally concluded, okay, this is what we want to RFQ in terms of technology. This is the process we would like to do in the future. So they brought on big pieces of the organization before even doing the design of the future and going to the technology vendors. I thought that was really a smart way to do.
Smart and important. Any other questions from the floor? There's one over there, sorry, right in the corner. Got about 5 minutes left, so we'll take a question or two.
My name is Vladimir from Cargo Probe. I have a question to build on, I think, what Gebriel Werner said, to build on that, about the quantifiable benefits, what you want to achieve. So maybe the question is also for Dr. Linge from Autoliv. I think you've done a lot for integrating your new work methods across all of the organization. But maybe the question is, what did you define as a start? What did you want to achieve? And where are you now? Did you already have a lot of quantifiable benefits from the new way of working? And if so, can you share some?
Maybe you go first.
Who wants to go first?
So we are on the start of our journey, and that's what I told you when you asked me to join you. So it depends. So some of the initiatives have quantifiable effects. So that was about in our warehouse management to get there. Maybe some of the basic stuff, because sometimes we're still managed by ERPs and Excels and so on. So we have quantifiable effects of that. Things are going faster. That we also need probably in the future maybe less people to doing, because we can also and we have less disruption, so to say, in the lines, because we can easier make sure that the things are on time in the fed to the line, so to say. In the project that I'm doing, we are still in the pilot phase, not even pilot phase. We are working on demand forecasting, so we are doing the training, the machine learning, so not generative AI, but more the classical AI. But the benefits we are looking for is reducing inventory levels, for example, improving decision making. What do we mean with improving decision making? Hopefully having then less interruptions, less premium fights. So we really have tried to come up, okay, what are very concrete measures, and where we also can easily get that out of the systems, and then to compare. But also what you also have to be very open and transparent to my CFO is saying, I cannot have like this 1-on-1 direction, because there are many causes for premium freights or high inventory levels, not always that you have done your planning not right? But if you say this kind of disclaimer up front, that's what we try now to see, are we getting better or not? And to be honest, if we see in the pilots we are not getting better and we don't see the benefits, then we will move on and will not try desperately to make this thing work, right? So, and this is, I think, a key mindset change, and that's not also always easy, because it also I have also to tell my own team, you're working on a very important topic, but maybe we find out after 3 months it was not the cure, and then we have to move on and to look for the next thing, because I think that was many times in the past a wrong thing that we, in German you say you ride a dead horse even further, and to say, okay, when it's time to move on and to look for the next opportunity. And the good thing is with digitalization and AI and so on, there are so many different opportunities out there. But really, when is the right time to make the cut? Yeah. And you need strong support from controlling and finance. So I have a logistics finance director, and she's very working hard and really controlling to questions, but working together with the plants, what benefits do you see? So one thing that we're also now doing is asking actually the plants. So we have the top management setters, these are your OKRs, but now we go to the plants and say, okay, what would be a good benefit from your side? What are you looking for?
Yeah. There was a lot in there. So on the last point, so that's basically fail fast, right? That's really a mindset that if you want to embed digitalization in your organizations, you not only have to fail on occasion, you're going to have to fail fast, because that means you're going to free up the resource to try something else, right? And then if you do that in repeated fashion, then of course what remains is the stuff that works and that adds value to your business. Then the other thing I think we should say here is you just said classical AI, and I just thought that was lovely, right? As if we've
already got classical stuff.
It's just already that's already that classical stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's in the past.
I thought that was fantastic. And then to your question, right? So the way we go about this at Blue Yonder is we're really trying to lead with that and start with that. Actually, the first question we ask is, okay, what is the value that you're trying to achieve? And we actually have a full practice that goes about quantifying and identifying all the individual value buckets, and we're trying to basically orientate the entire program on that, which also implies that post-implementation, we're going to have to come back and make some measurement, right, and see, okay, this is what we thought was the business case prior to the project, and okay, what it is that we actually have achieved. And if there is a discrepancy, which there may very well be, right, fail fast, then let's find out what it is and see if it can be addressed and that we can make sure the value actually is realized. Because this is complex stuff, right? These are not going to be, vanilla projects. It's always going to be challenging, but that's also where the fun is, right?
And Julian, in terms of some of the organizations that you're working with, how do you quantify that value creation and perhaps any return on investment, for example, in some of the people you're working with as they try to embed digitalization?
So it depends a little on which type of function we're looking at. If we look into digitization of transportation networks, that's obviously transportation cost, which is very obvious, but it's also inventory holding cost, because that is certainly affected. When we look into supply chain planning, we look at the entire inventory levels across the supply chain. This is actually getting very, very interesting if you dare to look apart from your first tier, maybe to your second tier, to your third tier. So if you go down the N-tier chain, this is something we like to do a lot, super, super difficult. But we try to understand the inventory levels across the chain, not just one pocket, but across the chain. I mean, this is really where it's getting interesting, because otherwise you push it from one end to the other, and in the end you try to hide it somewhere. While still having a good service level to your client, because that is, of course, what is driving us. We want to keep up that service level, but we want to do it at an, let's say, optimized cost across the supply chain.
Okay. There's a lot there. Last question is, I've got one more question, but anyone from the audience first? No? I'm just going to throw it forward to the next 5, 6 years and 10 years even, just to start you thinking on predicting where or what does embedded digitalization look like, right? We're talking about it now, but if we did this conference in 5 years' time, what would it look like? I'll start with Gebriel first, and we'll come back this way.
Yeah, from our perspective, it's going to look like in a way that I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a user now, is you're not going to use a system anymore through a point-and-click UI where you look at charts and maybe run scenarios and have to come up with all that stuff. You're gonna just interact with the system through voice and through speech, and you're gonna ask the system to do stuff for you, to work for you as an agent. And when I say system, I'm not just referring to the individual pockets of capability that we've been talking about today, but the supply chain as such, right? So the supply chain as such has come alive, and you can ask it to work for you. You have a business situation that has arisen, and you'd ask it, hey, can you go and generate a set of scenarios for me, right? And can you go and run it? And what's the best recommendation that you can make? So that's the interaction that's going to happen with the systems.
Yeah. Julian, where do you see it in 10 years' time, 5 years' time?
It goes in a similar direction. So all the communication with the system, we hope, is going to be much, much easier from a user perspective. So right now, for instance, let me draw back a little bit. Not long ago, we tried to optimize the dashboards, the UIs, all that kind of stuff, trying to avoid email, trying to avoid chat and all this. Right now, we have a tendency of saying, we don't care. Let them write emails, let them use chat. Let's take this unstructured information, compile it in a way that we pull out all the information into structured form, and then we can work with this. This way, we guarantee a very, very high and positive user feedback. And in the end, it's the same for us. And the user can just do whatever, or work how he likes to work. This is helping us to facilitate the transformation. So this is one thing that goes, I think, in your direction. But what I really, really hope, and what we are working on, is that we get rid of this master data discussion. And we talked about it already this morning. Yeah. So we did not find all keys yet, but we are very, very certain that there are ways to regress, to analyze the data you have in order to find the right packaging data.
You were my savior.
Yeah. So we think master data is certainly very important, but we are working towards a future where we can use all the technology we have out there in order to fill up missing spots. And all these spreadsheets that come incomplete, and then the engineering or quality didn't put in the information, that we can just compile this information based on the knowledge we have. And we think that's hopefully not going to last 5 years to be there.
Yeah, and based on what you both said, so what I'm dreaming of course, is having then this kind of advanced end-to-end planning systems there. I can, make better decision-making, but in an interactive way, like, okay, because, in this SNOP process, like when you have to do this different scenarios, right, and not looking at different dashboards, but like ask this kind of co-pilots in the systems, okay, what happens if, this increase the demand there, but the supply there, and then it comes up within seconds with a proposal. And then, and also, of course, it would be great if I don't have to force people to clean up their data every now and then, if this comes in. But this all will then only work, and then coming maybe back to the beginning, if we trust in these systems. So, because the regression is fine if my planner in the end or whoever is not trusting that this is the right assumption, they will still not take it. And the same as even if I can interact in a human way with my system, I still need to trust into the system. And I think that's, again, what you also said, being more human-centric and having this in our mind when we embed digitalization, to take this also seriously. As also, I think René was saying about what he's doing in ZF, like, taking the concerns and being also aware of the risk and do this together.
So one of the trust enablers could be, right, imagine 5 years down the road, you come to the SNOP meeting, and the scenarios are already there. You didn't have to tell the system. Right? You didn't have to say, oh, maybe I should run a scenario with this parameters, or maybe I should research a scenario with that parameter. Right? Maybe the system has already, through generative AI, understood, okay, here's a set of scenarios. It could be hundreds, right? And computation power is basically limitless in the supercomputer that is the internet, right? And you come to your meetings, and it already comes with the suggestions, and the conclusions and basically say, here's a set of options that you could now choose as business leaders. Wouldn't that be something?
That sounds like a wonderful future, if you ask me. Well, thank you very much for this. There's a lot of in there in terms of where... Hello? That's better. No, so there's a lot in there in terms of where we want to be in 5-10 years' time in terms of embedding digitalization, and some key takeaways would be about trust and keeping it human. So I'm going to thank all my panelists. Thank you so much for that. And they'll be around for the rest of the evening, rest of the afternoon, and a drinks reception as well. So thank you very much, all three of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.